guys, welcome to A Novel Affair.
The Bookish podcast where we kiss and tell about our torrid affairs with fictional characters.
So grab a drink and get ready for some pure, unadulterated fun. Today, we are going to be discussing the last installment in the Ravenhood series, Finish Line, by Kate Stewart. For a more in-depth and uncensored version of this review, head over to our podcast and learn all about our favorite scenes. You can just look for the link in the description below. In this one, though, we do flashback from Cecelia and Tobias's point of view, and we do get flashbacks into Tobias's past. So it's a lot of switching perspectives. It's a lot to keep up with. So for simplicity's sake, we are just going to kind of get through most of half the book just to kind of catch everyone up, because you'll see why. You'll understand in a few minutes.
It's a lot of book, and there's a lot of flashing all over the place, so I think it's helpful that we are going to keep our kind of storytelling in the present day activity. Um, and obviously,
Yeah.
we fully encourage you go read this book for all the juicy details.
Right.
So, okay, our book summary for The Finish Line. Tobias returns intent on gaining back the love and trust that he destroyed when he ordered Cecelia away and all the torment that followed. Cecelia grapples with this renewed version of Tobias. She finds it hard to trust him. She builds a wall between the two of them and is not fully allowing Tobias back into her heart. And while Tobias and Cecelia try to navigate their emotions and reconciliation, there is a new threat that arises on the horizon. This ghost from Tobias's past could ruin everything they are working for. Can they survive another villain and find their way back to each other? Bum, bum, bum.
Well said. So, again, I'm going to kind of just recap about the first half of the book. We open in the prologue with Tobias's point of view at age 44 in France. But again, we have a flashback within this point of view where
So many flashes. We're flashing here, there, everywhere.
I mean, it states that he is 44 in France, but the initial paragraphs are him as a child in a memory. And it's him walking on a beach with his biological father, who, if you've read the other books, you will know that he and his family fled from his biological father because he started to have mental health issues and was becoming very mean and irate.
Were we clear that he had mental health issues in the other books, or did we just know he had kind of gone off the deep end?
I think towards the end of Exodus, Cecelia figures out that his father did in fact have some issues. In that, because he mentions that his mother didn't really understand what was wrong with his father, but as he grew older, he realized what was happening.
It just, and I just point this out to say that it did not, it did not seem clear to me that, and we actually get the diagnosis of schizophrenia here,
Yeah.
and that had not been clear to me before, but I think it adds this layer to what Tobias and Cecelia have in common because of the issues that she grew up with her mother. And we find out,
Right.
although he didn't grow up with his dad necessarily, that schizophrenia diagnosis is kind of it just adds a new layer to this story. That's all I wanted to say.
He's in this memory walking on the beach with his father back before all of the other bad stuff had happened. And they talk about a sand dollar he had found, and his father told him that if you break it directly down the middle, you get a special surprise. And now Tobias is standing on that same beach at 44, and he is waiting for Cecelia to show up because they are at the finish line, which, if you've read the other books, you know what the finish line actually is. It's a house in Paris that he built, like 20 years prior to this, that he had never stepped foot in, but it was supposed to be like his retirement house, like his I'm hanging up my vigilante gear and I'm going to just live in this house, but he never stepped foot in it.
Just the prologue is this is such a Tarantino moment because we're back to the future. It's like
She's being an ass.
So it's a Back to the Future moment because we're in the future with a flashback to the past. Back to the Future.
Referencing the past.
Referencing the past. It's just like, yeah. So this prologue,
you nailed it right on the head. It's very Tarantino.
This prologue sets you up for the kind of like mental gymnastics that you're going to be doing in this book. Okay. So let's do some ratings.
So I gave my overall rating as a 7 out of 10. This book was not my favorite in the series. For a few reasons, I felt like the book itself is good, but it's not action-filled like the other books were.
Agreed.
It's not a whole lot of like big key events. It's more like two long storylines floating side by side to each other. Where I feel like a lot of these flashbacks would have been beneficial more in Exodus, in the second part of Exodus.
Agreed.
But
Totally agreed. And I also gave this a 7 out of 10. I think that the pace is a little slower than needed. I think the inner monologues are a little bit more
what?
than is totally necessary. Still good, still entertaining, still recommend it as part of the series, just so you
Mm-hmm.
get the whole story, but definitely not my favorite in this series.
I had actually heard something that the book series technically ended with Exodus, but people were demanding a better ending, so she created Finish Line. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that. That was just a rumor that I heard swirling around back when this book became like huge.
I mean, that and it sold really well, so why not sell
Yeah.
a third book? That was an
Third.
easy sell,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. For content, I gave it a 5 out of 10 because, I mean, for the same reason you just said, it had a lot of inner monologue that just felt fluffed. Like, it didn't need so much internalized information. We could have done without some of that.
Yeah, I'm right there, right in that range. I said 6 out of 10. I think the only difference would be um, that it is at least different. It's at least a different than your average. Like if I'm comparing this book to the previous ones, 100% agree. When I compare this book to all books or all smut books, I still think that there's some originality there that we don't get to see
Yeah,
very often.
I can see that. For Spice, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because there were some. I really enjoyed the spicy scenes, but there were so far and few between that it just didn't hit as a smut book, in my opinion. No, I mean, granted, I read a lot of dark smut books, which is nothing but spice.
So I actually am gonna put this as a 5 out of 10, because for me, like you said, it does not read like smut, and it
Yeah.
it's there. And like I had said several times, when we were in our deep dive, I love the tension, the buildup. That was
Yeah.
totally there. However, that's not spice for me. And so
Yeah.
definitely one of the lower spice scores for sure.
Yeah. It didn't have a whole lot to it. The romance I gave a 9 out of 10 because I felt like there was actually quite a bit of romance. Not spice, not smut, but he was trying to romance her throughout the entirety of the book, trying to win her love back. And so I gave it a 9 out of 10.
We're really close. I'm at 8 out of 10. I think there's definitely the side of romance where it's a struggle and it's learning how to be domestic with someone, learning how to
Yeah.
manage their best friend and their parents and all of that side, but definitely not the sweet love type of romance. But I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
So
It was more real than the fantasy we usually see in these books, and I think that's why I still gave it such a high rating because
agreed.
it can you can resonate with it. It's not something so far out and outlandish, you know.
Yeah, very relatable.
For the for the writing, I gave a 7 out of 10 again because of the inner monologuing. There was so much of it, and I felt it was so unnecessary to have all of that. It felt kind of fluffed for the sake of a big book rather than actual important details.
I agree, and I'm right there with you. 7 out of 10 on the writing. It's a good story, but I
Yeah.
think that there was maybe we tried to make it more than was there. Um, so we're right on track with that one, on the same page.
Yeah. For characters, I still gave a 10 out of 10 because I love the way she writes her characters. They are very well developed, they are so deep, they are so complex. They feel like real people. So for characters, I still gave a 10 out of 10.
I'm right there. I think 9 out of 10. I think we get to see some different sides of Tobias in this one, which
Mhm.
I think were needed. I think Tobias as a character was not fully developed by the end of Exodus, and so I think if anything, the finish line is really uh, Tobias's redemption character
Yeah.
arc wise.
I So as a final summary of my feelings of this whole series, I really loved the first one. It was by far my favorite. The second one broke my heart. And this one I felt like was needed just to give Tobias some humanity and to gain a better understanding of what it was that made him into who he is. I like to know the why somebody is the way they are. So I felt like this book was necessary. It was not my favorite, but it, overall, this entire series is one of my favorite series.
I think this could have been 2 books. That's kind of my takeaway. I think Exodus could have been split in half, and we've the first book with the first part of Exodus, and then we could have gotten all of this kind of together. Again, it's good. It's entertaining. It's something different. I think that's my big plug for this is that it does not follow um, the same kind of cookie cutter plot. And it's good. But I actually would not put this in my favorites category. Um, but
I would.
but I definitely think in terms of people starting out, I think regardless of your genre, I think this is a really good one to read. It's a staple.
Yeah. If there was one thing I could rewrite in this book, I'm pretty sure we would all rewrite the same thing, but I would rewrite it not so that he didn't die, but so that he had faked his death
I
and
like
came
that.
back at the end.
I like that. See, I thought you were going to
Because that would have been
say
something he did.
I thought you were going to say Tobias died instead.
No. I know everyone simps for Sean, okay, but I do like Tobias. I can relate to the having to be the parent at a young age to your younger sibling, so I get why he is the way he is and why he feels a need to protect everyone.
Totally, for sure.
I get it.
I just am going to say that if I could have my fan fiction rewrite, I would like for Tobias to be the self sacrificing one, and then she stays with Sean and Dom forever. It's a polyamorous happy ever after.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. As always, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our take on this steamy book, and we will see y'all next week on A Novel Affair.
When we will be discussing our next spicy book, the Crescent City series. I'm very excited about this. This is one of my picks. Um, if you've been living under a rock and you're not aware, Crescent City is the most recently published series by Sarah J. Maas. Um, for those that are in the ACOTAR uh, book club, um, and this will be a new read for Destiny, so I'm excited to get to uh, lead her along into my romantasy adventure. Um, I did con her also into reading ACOTAR a couple years ago, so I'm excited to go on this journey together, and we will start that series next week.
Don't forget to head over to our podcast to listen to a full breakdown of this book and many others with spoilers and discussions, and you can find that link in the comments.
Be sure to like and follow us on social media and hit that subscribe button before you go. We'll see y'all soon.